Hi, I'm Marcus. I'm a certified electrician making $95,000 a year. But that Thanksgiving, my parents kicked me out of the dinner table because I only went to trade school. You know what's crazy? While my unemployed brother with his fancy college degree was sitting there getting praised for his potential, I was the one secretly keeping a roof over everyone's head. But they didn't know that yet. Have you ever been looked down on by your own family for a career choice that's actually more successful than theirs? Drop a comment below because this story gets wild. It started like any other Thanksgiving. Mom had been cooking for days. The house smelled like turkey and stuffing, and I drove 3 hours from my apartment to be there. I brought a bottle of wine and some of those fancy dinner rolls from the bakery downtown. You know, trying to contribute. The moment I walked through the door, I could feel the tension. Mom gave me one of those half hugs where she barely touches you, and Dad just nodded from his recliner. My older brother Jake was already there, sprawled across the couch in his pajamas at 2 in the afternoon. Jake graduated from state with a business degree 4 years ago and has been looking for the right opportunity ever since. Translation: he's been living in their basement, playing video games, and eating their food. But somehow, I'm the disappointment. We sat down for dinner, and everything seemed normal at first. Uncle Mike and Aunt Linda were there with their kids. Cousin Sarah just finished her residency and was talking about her new position at the hospital. Cousin David passed the bar exam and landed a job at some law firm downtown. Everyone was congratulating them, asking about their careers, their apartments, their relationships. Then Uncle Mike turned to me. "So, Marcus, what are you up to these days?" Before I could answer, Mom jumped in. "Oh, Marcus went to trade school." She said it like I'd announced I was joining the circus. "He's an electrician." The table went quiet. You could hear the grandfather clock ticking in the hallway. "That's great," Aunt Linda said, but her voice had that fake enthusiasm people use when they're trying to be polite. "Very practical." Dad cleared his throat. "We always hoped Marcus would go to college like Jake, get a real education. But he decided to take the easy route." Easy route. Let me tell you about the easy route. 2 years of intensive training, learning electrical codes, safety protocols, working with high-voltage systems that could literally kill you if you mess up. Studying for certification exams that have a 40% pass rate. Then, starting as an apprentice, working my way up, dealing with emergency calls at 3 in the morning in the middle of winter. Real easy. Well, Cousin Sarah chimed in, not everyone is cut out for medical school. Jake snorted from across the table. "At least I have a degree. I mean, trade school is basically high school with tools, right?" I felt my face getting hot, but I kept my mouth shut. I'd learned years ago that defending myself only made things worse. They'd already made up their minds about who I was and what my life meant. Then Mom dropped the bomb. "Honestly, we're embarrassed to tell people what you do for a living. When the neighbors ask about our boys, we talk about Jake's degree and his potential. With you," she shrugged. "What are we supposed to say?" The mashed potatoes felt like sand in my mouth. Everyone was staring at their plates now, the conversation dying a slow, painful death. "Maybe Marcus would be more comfortable eating in the kitchen," Dad suggested, "so we can have a proper family discussion." And that's how I ended up spending Thanksgiving dinner sitting on a bar stool in their kitchen, listening to my family laugh and celebrate in the next room while I ate turkey off a paper plate like some kind of pariah. But here's what they didn't know. Here's what made the whole thing so twisted and insane. 3 years earlier, when Dad lost his job at the manufacturing plant and Mom's hours got cut at the school district, they were facing foreclosure. The bank had sent notice after notice. They were 60 days behind on their mortgage, and the stress was killing them both. That's when I stepped in. I'd just finished my certification and landed my first real job with Henderson Electric. The pay was good, better than anything I'd expected, and I was living in a small apartment with low expenses. So I made a decision that I thought would prove to my family that I was worth something. I started covering their mortgage. $2,400 a month, every single month for 3 years. I'd transfer the money to their account, and they'd make the payment. To everyone else, it looked like they were managing fine on their own. They told me it was temporary. "Just until we get back on our feet," Dad had said. "We'll pay you back every penny." But temporary turned into a year. then 2 years, then 3. And instead of being grateful, instead of recognizing what I was doing for them, they kept treating me like I was the family failure. They told their friends I was finding my way. They told the neighbors I was between opportunities. They acted like my trade school education was something to be ashamed of. Meanwhile, Jake was racking up credit card debt and asking them for grocery money. The worst part, they started telling people they were helping me. I overheard Mom on the phone with her sister last month saying, "Oh, we're helping Marcus with some expenses while he gets established." You know how hard it is for kids these days. Helping me, when I was the one keeping their house from being repossessed. So there I was, sitting in their kitchen on Thanksgiving, listening to them celebrate everyone else's achievements while completely ignoring mine. And the whole time, I was looking at a stack of mail on their counter, including a mortgage statement that I knew I'd be paying next week. That's when I noticed something that made my blood run cold. The mortgage statement was sitting right there, and across the top, stamped in red ink, were the words, "Past due." I got up and walked over, pretending I was looking for more napkins. The statement was from last month, and it showed they were behind again. Not just a little behind, 60 days behind. Same as 3 years ago, which meant they'd been lying to me. I'd been sending them the money every month, like clockwork, $2,400 transferred from my account to theirs. But somehow, they still weren't current on the mortgage. My hands started shaking as I realized what was happening. They were taking my money and using it for other things, probably helping Jake with his expenses, probably covering Mom's shopping trips and Dad's new truck. They were treating me like a bank, a stupid, reliable bank that they could withdraw from whenever they needed money, while simultaneously telling everyone I was the one who needed help. I walked back to my bar stool and sat down, staring at that paper plate with the cold turkey and congealed gravy. In the dining room, I could hear them toasting Cousin Sarah's new job. Dad was making a speech about the importance of education and achievement. "To our successful children," he was saying, "the ones who make us proud." That's when I made my decision. I pulled out my phone and opened my banking app. Right there in the kitchen, while they were celebrating everyone except me, I canceled the automatic transfer I'd set up 3 years ago. $2,400 a month, canceled. Then I sent my mom a text. "Enjoyed dinner. Thanks for having me. Drive home safe." She texted back immediately. "You're leaving already? We're about to have pie." I typed back, "I think I've had enough." As I was gathering my coat, Uncle Mike came into the kitchen. "Hey, don't let them get to you," he said quietly. "They don't mean anything by it. Actually, I think they mean exactly what they say. Marcus, family is family. You know they love you." I looked at him, this man who'd just spent the last hour listening to my parents tear me down without saying a word in my defense. If this is love, I think I'll pass. I drove home in silence, my phone buzzing with confused texts from my family. Jake sent me a message saying I was being dramatic and needed to learn to take a joke. Mom wanted to know why I left without saying goodbye properly, but the message that really got to me came from Dad an hour later. "Your mother is upset. You embarrassed us in front of the family. This is exactly the kind of immature behavior we've come to expect from you." Immature behavior, from the guy who'd been secretly paying their bills for 3 years. I sat in my apartment that night, looking at my bank statement on my laptop. $86,400. That's how much I'd given them over the past 3 years. Money that could have been a down payment on my own house. Money that could have been my emergency fund, my retirement savings, my future. Instead, I'd been subsidizing their lifestyle while they told everyone I was a disappointment. But that wasn't even the most infuriating part. The most infuriating part was that I'd done it because I thought it would prove my worth to them. I thought if I could just show them how responsible and successful I was, they'd finally respect me. Instead, they'd taken my money and my dignity. My phone rang around midnight. It was Mom. "Marcus, we need to talk about your attitude tonight." "My attitude?" "Yes. You were sulking all evening and then you just left without explanation. Your cousins were asking questions." "What kind of questions?" "About why you were acting so strange. About whether you're having problems. It reflects poorly on all of us when you behave like that." I almost laughed. Almost. Mom, let me ask you something. When you tell people about Jake and me, what do you say? What do you mean? I mean, how do you describe your two sons to other people? There was a long pause. Marcus, where is this coming from? Just answer the question. Well, I tell them Jake has his degree and is looking for the right opportunity. And you're working in a trade. And which one sounds more successful to you? Success isn't just about money, Marcus. Right. So when the bank calls about your mortgage payment, I should tell them that success isn't just about money? Another pause, longer this time. What are you talking about? Nothing, Mom. Forget I said anything. Marcus, I hung up. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about that mortgage statement, about the pattern I'd been blind to for 3 years. They weren't just ungrateful, they were actively deceiving me, taking my money while treating me like a charity case, and tomorrow was Black Friday. The whole family would be gathering again for their annual shopping trip. All the cousins, all the aunts and uncles, everyone who'd witnessed my humiliation at dinner. That's when I decided it was time for them to learn the truth. All of them. But first, I needed proof. The next morning, I was up at 6 a.m. sitting at my kitchen table with a cup of coffee and my laptop open. If I was going to do this, I needed to do it right. I needed documentation, proof, evidence that couldn't be dismissed or explained away. I started with my bank statements, 3 years' worth of monthly transfers, each one for exactly $2,400. I printed every single page, highlighting the dates and amounts. $86,400, documented in black and white. But that was just the beginning. I went through my phone and screenshotted every text message my parents had sent me asking for money. There were dozens of them. Marcus, can you help us out this month? The mortgage company is being difficult again. Just until things settled down, I'd saved them all, thinking maybe someday they'd want to add up what they owed me. Now, I was glad I had. Next, I dug through my email. I found the original message from Dad 3 years ago explaining their financial situation. We hate to ask, he'd written, but we're in real trouble here. The bank is threatening foreclosure. If you could help us with the mortgage payments temporarily, we'd be forever grateful. This is just between us. No need to worry your brother or the extended family. Just between us. Right. I also found the emails from their mortgage company that they'd forwarded to me, showing their past due status and the threat of foreclosure. But here's what was interesting. Those emails were from 3 years ago. I hadn't seen any recent correspondence because they'd stopped copying me on anything from the bank, which meant either they were current on their payments or they were hiding something from me. I grabbed my keys and drove to First National Bank where they held their mortgage. I'd been there before with my parents during the original crisis, so the staff knew me as their son, who was helping out. Sarah Martinez was working the customer service desk. She'd been the one who helped us set up the payment arrangement 3 years ago. Marcus! Good to see you. How can I help you today? Hi, Sarah. I need to check on my parents' account status. I've been helping them with their mortgage payments, and I want to make sure everything's current. Her expression shifted slightly. Oh, well, I can't give you specific account details without your parents present, but... She looked around and lowered her voice. Can we talk privately for a minute? She led me to a small office in the back. Marcus, I probably shouldn't be telling you this, but I've been worried about your parents' situation for months now. What do you mean? They're behind again. 60 days past due as of this week. When I called to discuss payment options, your mother told me they were having family problems and their son had stopped helping them financially. My stomach dropped. She said I stopped helping them? She said you'd been unreliable with payments lately and they couldn't count on you anymore. But Marcus, our records show that the payments have been coming regularly from your account for 3 years straight. You've never missed a single month. I stared at her. So where's the money going? Sarah pulled up something on her computer screen, angling it away from me. I really shouldn't be showing you this, but the payments have been coming in from your account transfer, but then there have been withdrawals, cash withdrawals, usually within a few days of each payment. They're taking the mortgage money out of their account? It appears that way, and when I asked your mother about it last week, She said they were using the money for family emergencies and would catch up on the mortgage when their financial situation improved. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. Not only were they taking my money instead of paying their mortgage, they were blaming me to the bank for their missed payments. Sarah, would you be willing to provide documentation of this? Official records showing the payment history and withdrawal patterns? She hesitated. Marcus, I could lose my job. My family is about to gather for Black Friday shopping, and they're going to spend the day talking about how successful everyone is while treating me like a failure. Meanwhile, I've been paying their bills for 3 years while they lie about it to everyone, including the bank. I just need someone to confirm the truth. She was quiet for a long moment. Then she nodded. Let me print some records for you. But this conversation never happened. 20 minutes later, I walked out of the bank with a folder full of documentation. Payment records showing my transfers. Withdrawal records showing them taking the money out. Notes from phone conversations where my mother blamed me for their financial problems. It was all there, in official bank documents. But I wasn't done yet. I drove to my parents' house. They were both at work, but I still had a key from when I used to help with yard work. I let myself in and went straight to Dad's home office. It didn't take long to find what I was looking for. In a file cabinet labeled Financial, I found copies of all their mortgage correspondence, including recent letters from the bank that they'd never shown me. But the real revelation was in a folder marked Family. Inside were printed emails between my parents discussing their financial strategy. I probably shouldn't have read them, but after what I'd learned at the bank, all bets were off. The emails were from the past 6 months. Mom writing to Dad, Marcus transferred the usual amount. I moved it to savings like we discussed. Dad replying, good. Jake needs help with his credit card payments again, and I want to get the truck repairs done. Another exchange from 2 months ago. The bank called about the mortgage again. Should we tell Marcus? Dad's response, no point worrying him. We'll catch up eventually. Besides, if we tell him we're still behind, he might start asking questions about where the money's going. And then the email that made my hands shake with rage. Mom to Dad, dated last week. Marcus seemed upset at Thanksgiving. Do you think he suspects anything? Dad's reply, no way. He's too trusting. And even if he figured it out, what's he going to do? He can't afford to let us lose the house. He'll keep paying because he feels guilty. That's just who he is. Too trusting. Keep paying because of guilt. That's just who he is. They'd been playing me for 3 years, using my sense of family obligation against me while secretly mocking my character behind my back. I took pictures of every email, every bank letter, every piece of evidence I could find. Then I locked up the house and drove home, my mind racing with what I'd discovered. It wasn't just that they'd been lying to me. It wasn't just that they'd been taking my money for other purposes. They'd been actively deceiving everyone. The bank, the extended family, probably their friends and neighbors too, creating this elaborate fiction where they were responsible homeowners helping their struggling son, when the reality was exactly the opposite. And tomorrow, Black Friday, they were all going to gather again. All the cousins who'd witnessed my humiliation at Thanksgiving dinner, all the aunts and uncles who'd heard my parents talk about their disappointment in my career choices. Time for them to learn the truth. That evening, I called Sarah at the bank. Would you be willing to meet with me and my family tomorrow? I think it's time for an honest conversation about their mortgage situation. Marcus, I don't know if that's appropriate. Sarah, they owe $86,000 that they've taken from me under false pretenses. They've lied to you about me being unreliable. And tomorrow, they're going to spend the day shopping with money that should have gone to their mortgage payment. I think a professional perspective might help clarify things. She was quiet for a moment. What time? Black Friday morning, I got up early and drove to my parents' house. The whole extended family was gathering at 10 for their annual shopping expedition. Uncle Mike, Aunt Linda, the cousins, everyone who'd been at Thanksgiving dinner. I arrived at 9:30 carrying a briefcase with all my documentation. Sarah was already there, parked across the street in her Honda Civic, looking nervous but determined. I knocked on the door. Mom answered, looking surprised to see me. Marcus, what are you doing here? And why do you have a briefcase? We need to talk, all of us. Honey, the family's about to arrive for shopping. Can this wait? No, Mom, it really can't. Dad appeared behind her. Marcus, if you're here to apologize for your behavior yesterday, I'm here to clear up some confusion about my financial reliability. Before they could respond, Uncle Mike's car pulled into the driveway, followed by Aunt Linda's SUV. Perfect timing. Everyone gathered in the living room, the same room where I'd been humiliated 24 hours earlier. Jake was there in his usual spot on the couch, already scrolling through Black Friday deals on his phone. The cousins were chatting about their shopping lists. Uncle Mike was asking Dad about his plans for the day. Before we head out, I said, loud enough to get everyone's attention, I wanted to share some information about my financial situation, since there seems to be some confusion about it. Mom and Dad exchanged glances. Marcus, Mom said carefully, maybe we should discuss this privately. Actually, I think everyone should hear this, especially since you've been discussing it with them. I opened my briefcase and pulled out my bank statements. For the past 3 years, I've been transferring $2,400 a month to my parents' checking account. That's their mortgage payment. The room went quiet. Cousin Sarah looked confused. Wait, what? See, while you were all celebrating my cousin's achievements yesterday, what nobody knew was that I've been paying for this house. This house where we're sitting right now. I've paid $86,400 toward their mortgage. Jake looked up from his phone. That's not true. I handed him the bank statements. Every transfer is documented, 3 years' worth. Aunt Linda frowned. But your parents said they were helping you financially. Did they? I looked directly at my parents. What exactly did they tell you they were helping me with? The silence stretched uncomfortably long. They said you were having trouble getting established, Uncle Mike said slowly. That they were covering some of your expenses while you found your footing. Found my footing. I almost laughed. I make $95,000 a year. I live in a nice apartment, drive a reliable car, and have money in savings. The only financial trouble I've had is spending $86,000 keeping my parents' house from being foreclosed. Dad stood up. Marcus, you're taking this out of context. Am I? I pulled out my phone and opened the screenshots of their text messages. Dad, read this text you sent me 2 months ago. Out loud. His face went pale as he recognized his own message. Marcus, please don't do this. Read it. Marcus, can you help us out this month? The mortgage company is being difficult again, just until things settle down. Just until things settle down, I repeated, 2 months ago, after I'd already been paying for 3 years. I turned to address the room. Here's what's really been happening. My parents have been taking my money every month, but instead of paying their mortgage, they've been withdrawing it for other expenses. They're currently 60 days behind on their payments. That's not, Mom started. Sarah? I called toward the front door. Could you come in here, please? Sarah Martinez entered the living room, looking professional in her bank blazer and carrying an official folder. Everyone, this is Sarah Martinez from First National Bank, where my parents hold their mortgage. Sarah, would you mind explaining the current status of their account? Sarah looked around the room at all the shocked faces. The account is currently 60 days past due. The last payment was received in September. And who has been making the payments for the past 3 years? The payments have been coming from Marcus's account via electronic transfer. And what happened to those payments? Sarah hesitated, then opened her folder. The transfers would arrive, and then typically within a few days, equivalent amounts would be withdrawn as cash. Uncle Mike was staring at my parents in disbelief. You've been taking his money and not paying your mortgage. It's more complicated than that, Dad said desperately. Actually, it's not. I pulled out the printed emails I'd found in his office. I found these in your file cabinet yesterday. I handed the first email to Cousin David, the lawyer. Read that one out loud. David's voice was flat as he read, Marcus transferred the usual amount. I moved it to savings like we discussed. He looked up at my parents. This is from your email account, Aunt Karen. I handed him the second email. And this one, good. Jake needs help with his credit card payments again, and I want to get the truck repairs done. David's expression was getting harder. Uncle Robert, did you write this? Dad couldn't meet his eyes. But it was the third email that really ended it. I handed it to Uncle Mike. Do you think he suspects anything? Mike read, his voice rising with each word. No way. He's too trusting. And even if he figured it out, what's he going to do? He can't afford to let us lose the house. He'll keep paying because he feels guilty. That's just who he is. The room exploded. Are you kidding me? Cousin Sarah was on her feet. You've been calling him a failure while he's paying your bills? Jake was staring at the bank statements like he couldn't process what he was seeing. You make $95,000? More than your college-educated unemployed ass, I said calmly. Aunt Linda was shaking her head. Karen, how could you lie to us like this? We weren't lying, Mom said weakly. We were going to pay him back. With what money? I asked. You're unemployed, Jake's unemployed, and Dad's been using my mortgage payments to cover your truck repairs and Jake's credit cards. Sarah, the bank manager, cleared her throat. I should mention that when I spoke with Mrs. Henderson last week about the overdue payments, she told me that Marcus had become unreliable and they could no longer count on his financial support. The room went dead silent. You told the bank I was unreliable? I stared at my mother. While I was transferring money to your account every single month like clockwork? We were protecting you, she said desperately. We didn't want the bank to think poorly of you. By telling them I was a deadbeat while I was literally paying your mortgage? Uncle Mike stood up and walked toward the door. I've heard enough. Karen, Robert, this is disgusting. Marcus, I owe you an apology. We all do. One by one, the extended family started gathering their things to leave. The Black Friday shopping trip was over before it started. Cousin David, the lawyer, handed me his business card before leaving. If you need help recovering any of that money, call me. What they did is called fraud. As the house emptied out, only my immediate family remained. Mom was crying. Dad was staring at the floor. Jake was still holding my bank statements, looking lost. So, here's what's going to happen, I said calmly. Effective immediately, I'm done. No more transfers. No more financial help. No more family bank. Marcus, you can't just abandon us, Dad said. I'm not abandoning you. I'm stopping enabling you. But the house is your responsibility. You're both adults with college degrees. Jake has a degree too. Figure it out. Mom looked up at me with red eyes. Where are we supposed to come up with $2,400 a month? I don't know, Mom. Where were you planning to get it before you started lying to me 3 years ago? We'll lose everything. You should have thought of that before you spent my mortgage payments on truck repairs and Jake's credit cards. I packed up my briefcase and headed for the door. Marcus, Jake called after me. I'm sorry, man. I didn't know. I turned back to look at him. Jake, you're 27 years old. You've been living in this house rent-free for 4 years while I paid the mortgage. Maybe it's time you got a job and started contributing instead of just taking. As I walked to my car, I could hear them arguing inside, blaming each other, panicking about the mortgage, trying to figure out how to solve their self-created crisis. But for the first time in 3 years, it wasn't my problem. I drove home and sat in my apartment, looking around at my modest but comfortable space. My space that I paid for with my own money. No family drama, no lies, no manipulation. My phone started buzzing with messages. Extended family members apologizing for how they'd treated me. Friends asking if I was okay after Sarah had apparently shared what happened. Even some of my co-workers who'd somehow heard the story, reaching out to offer support. But the message that surprised me most came from an unexpected source. Jake. Marcus, I get it now. I've been a spoiled brat living off everyone else while looking down on you for actually working. I'm going to get a job, and I'm going to help with the mortgage. It's the least I can do after 3 years of you carrying my dead weight. Maybe there was hope for him after all. 3 months later, I bought my own house. A small place with a nice yard, big enough for me and whatever future I decided to build. I paid cash for the down payment, money I should have had 3 years ago if I hadn't been subsidizing my parents' lifestyle. They kept the house, barely. Jake got a job at a local warehouse and started contributing to expenses. Mom picked up extra hours. Dad took a weekend job. They had to make sacrifices, cut back on luxuries, actually budget their money like responsible adults. The family dynamic changed completely. At Christmas, nobody talked about my potential or made jokes about trade school. Uncle Mike asked me about my work with genuine interest. Cousin Sarah wanted advice about hiring an electrician for her new house. And when people asked my parents about their kids, they started leading with my success instead of hiding it. But the most important change was in how I saw myself. I wasn't the family failure anymore. I wasn't the disappointment or the one who needed help getting established. I was Marcus, the skilled electrician who made an excellent living, owned his own home, and had the self-respect to walk away from people who didn't value him, even when those people were family. Have you ever been gaslit by people who were supposed to support you? Have you ever supported someone who was simultaneously putting you down? Share your story in the comments below. I'll read everyone and I'll believe you. Because sometimes the people closest to us are the ones who can't see our worth, until we stop letting them take advantage of it.